I'm Scott L. Miller. It's the 1st of November, 2022. This is my vlog of daily life in León, Nicaragua. Today is Tuesday, and again, it is a very, very busy day, and I'm struggling, doing my best to keep up for you guys. I'm sorry that the show is pretty lean this entire week. It is the best that I can do. Sometimes it just has to be that way, and I apologize, but I have no free time. It is an absolute panic to get these shows out for you, partially because there's just so much going on at work. Some of it is the stuff I've been talking about. Some of it, work is just busy. So I've had a lot of like customers with like major projects or whatever coming up, and that's just keeping me tied up separately from anything that's going on. But this afternoon, after working all morning, I stayed pretty busy. This afternoon, we went out to see another house. Now, I forgot to mention yesterday, and I'm just gonna add it on today because it works out fine, that before we looked at the Fatima house yesterday, we also went and looked at a house in downtown León, and we thought we were looking at a house, like clearly the real estate agents don't know what to show you, and they don't pay any attention to your needs. So we could do an awful lot of different things, and I think real estate agents tend to be like, how much money can I make off of these people? And they don't really consider what you're looking for. They're not here. They don't represent you, so you can't be upset with them for that, because this is not a buyer's agent, it's a seller's agent. But it's a seller's agent who's like, oh, I have things to show you, and they're just doing whatever they want and wasting our time. So they took us to see a 20-room operating hostel as if it was a reasonable house option. Now, we're looking in about an $800 range. We know that we want something a little bit fancy. We know we need something really large. We know that other houses in perfect places are available and have been rented at $800 recently. And so we know what makes sense from a price range. We'd like to be below that, but we could certainly do that. And so she showed us a house that was much closer to $4,000 a month. Obviously, in no way, in no world whatsoever does that make any sense. It also did not work very well as a house. It wasn't like the perfect house and happened to be outrageously expensive. It was not clear how it would meet our needs per se, and yet outrageously expensive. I showed this really cute puppy who came over to see me. Hello. Yeah, you're gonna bark at me. And so that was really annoying. We were pretty annoyed after that. We're like, why was this shown to us? We were presented this as a viable house option, and when we got there, it was a working hostel. So that did not go over great, and we'll play into tomorrow's video. But while we were doing it, and I also forgot to mention this yesterday, we were on the street walking to that house, and I got stopped. Someone stopped me and said, Scott, and I turned around, and the guy introduced himself, and he's like, I watch your show. I've shown it to my family. Like, my brother watches your show. And it was so cool meeting him on the street. Like, I mean, I know it happens a little bit, but it's still one of those things that, like, I get stopped on the street and people recognize me. That's really cool. So if you watch the show and you see me and you stop me on the street, like Janet, hey Janet, who's done that, that's awesome. I love it. Now, of course, I was really in a hurry, so I couldn't stop and talk to him because people were waiting for us, but that was really cool. And it's a few times I've been recognized in El Centro by people I've never met, and it was really neat. Then while we were looking at the hostel, we walked through the hostel one way to look at it, and as we were walking back out, one of the people living in the hostel stopped me and said, your face is really familiar. Is it possible I've seen you from YouTube? And as soon as I started talking, he goes, yes, I watched your show. He was an exchange student from Germany, and he said that he watched my show to prepare for what it was going to be like moving to León. So that was really cool. So 2 people within an hour had found me and recognized me while we were out looking for houses. So that was really cool. Then, okay, so this afternoon we went to look at another house with a different agent, or maybe not even with an agent, we're not sure. But we went and saw a really large house, completely different style in a different part of the city. And this one we were less excited about than the one that we saw yesterday in Fatima, but this was twice the size easily. Huge outdoor grounds, double gated community in a completely gated section. So there was a outdoor like 20-foot barrier. And all right, we have someone who wants to be on the show, and he's gonna, hola?
Hola.
And here, I'll let him be on the show for a little bit. And so this huge 20-foot gate, and lots and lots of security, and then a gated house as well inside of this giant gate. So if the dogs managed to get out or whatever, the cat managed to escape, then they would be inside of a very well protected area. And there's only a few houses in this really large area, so there's a lot of opportunity for safety, and that's really nice. Lots of space for us to have offices and entertain. And while the girls wouldn't have the same quality of rooms that they would have in Fatima, they would have more space that's worth something. So, and a lot of parking and that kind of thing. And much, much, much closer, almost half the distance to our properties on the beach. And that also matters quite a bit. That is the owner of the dog, by the way, who is over here. And both dogs, the little tiny one and the one who came to see me. And so we were torn because that house was in so many ways better, but it didn't have that really cool space for the girls, and it isn't so modern. We really like the modern because that's something we miss from back home. We like the styles back in the US of the modern houses. I mean, we grew up in the US. It's hard to get away from liking that stuff, and a lot of people here in Nicaragua like it too. So it's not like it's just like people like that style for a reason. And in Fatima, you tend to get that, and where we're looking now in Sutiava, you don't tend to get that. And so this is a different, very Nicaraguan house, but big and beautiful and well built, very, very fancy, in a very, very fancy neighborhood. So we didn't know, but we did look at it, and it was really nice, and we really are happy with the options. After looking at it, we talked about it, and we all kind of leaned towards the modern, and the space for the girls kind of outweighs the extra space and everything else, we think. And so it was a tough decision, but we decided to put in an offer on the house in Fatima tonight. And it was relatively late in the afternoon when we did, so we may not hear anything today, but that is the plan. Now tonight, after we did all that, obviously I came back and had to work a bit. Then we did a bunch of running around town, or I did a bunch of running around town as other people drove to go out for dinner. Future Scott cutting in with a little bit more of the backstory for today. So for dinner, Paul and I wanted to go out for Italian. Dominica is going out with April. So they headed out to dinner. And then shortly thereafter, once I had the kids fed and everything done at work, Paul and I went out to get food. He goes on the moto and I tend to walk. I set out first because the kids wanted frozen pizza for dinner. So I tried to go get that for them. On the way, I actually found out there was a parade going on that was so intense I had no way to get through to get to La Colonia to get them frozen pizzas. So I had to push that off until after dinner. But I did get to check out some of the parade and grabbed a little bit of the footage of that for you. It is pretty interesting. I just grabbed a couple minutes. There was such a large number of people. This started from La Barrio down by our house that actually cut us off from all of the restaurants and stuff in the middle of town, and it went all the way through to the Basilica. So it was pretty big, and there's a lot of marching bands going on and that kind of stuff. So very interesting. I love that we run into these things all the time, but sometimes it does create some difficulties in being able to get places that we need to go. So I had to walk really far around, many blocks out of the way, like 8 blocks east, then north, and back. It was a really long walk to go out to dinner. While I was walking to go out to dinner, I actually walked past a restaurant in the center of town, and as I walked past, I think I hear my voice, of course I don't hear my voice, I hear my name, and I jump back and I look in, and it's Dominica and April sitting at a table in the window of Sua, looking out. The chances that I would walk past them in the city, and the chances that they would be sitting in the window, and the chances they would see me walk by seems pretty unlikely. So that was funny, and they had no idea that I was coming by, and I didn't know where they had gone to dinner. So I continued on, had dinner with Paul, actually beat him there, so I sent him the information, like here's how far you have to drive around to be able to get to the restaurant. We had a nice dinner, and then actually ran into a group of Americans who were there for dinner, got to talk to them for a little bit, and then I went to La Colonia, picked up frozen pizzas, the ones that the girls really like. They're $4 each, should be like $1. I did look it up, they're almost $2 each now at Walmart in the US, and walked back to the house. The parade was over at that point, and cooked dinner for the kids. That was our night. We did put in the offer on the house. That was all this evening, and I'm going to take you back to the regular show. And a nice evening out. I was out on foot a lot just because I've had to run around all day. So we went and had dinner. That was cool. On the way home, I noticed something in my shoe, and I got back, I walked the dogs, and I'm like, it felt like a stone had gotten into my shoe. And I'm like, boy, how my shoes are so tight, the way that these particular ones are. How did I get a stone in my shoe? And I thought, well, a lot of my soles are starting to get loose. Maybe it worked its way under and it's like in. I'm like, that's gonna be such a pain to work out. So I took off my shoe and I put my hand in, and I'm like, there's something poking through, and that must be, and I turned it over, and there was a shard of glass that went through my heel all the way through the shoe, up through the sock in the shoe, and it almost had pierced my sock, but somehow had not. Like the pressure of my sock and my skin on my heel was enough to keep it from going any further. But that's how close it was. It went all the way through. It was embedded way in. So I had like stepped on things that had pushed it into the sole. I had to really work to pull it out. What a mess that was, but did that, took it off. And then after that, Liesl and I watched Lord of the Rings. So it's actually The Hobbit Part 3, The Battle of the Five Armies, which is sadly just incredibly goofy. Like, it's like cartoonish, and so they don't take themselves seriously at all in that movie. It's like, we described it as like a Warner Brothers take on Dungeons and Dragons. It's just Wile E. Coyote dropping anvils on people with all that cartoony, like no physics, and no one runs realistically. Like, it's just non-stop goofy effects, unfortunately. And a lot of it is not from the books, which the books aren't the best. So I appreciate that they take some liberties, but they dragged this out so long and then made it so goofy at the end that it really takes a lot away from it. But Liesl did enjoy it. We completed the Hobbit trilogy in the extended editions. She now has a really solid background, and really soon we're going to start watching The Lord of the Rings and work our way through that, which is so much better than The Hobbit. And Liesl has seen it before, but only when she was really little, so she has basically no memory of it other than just that she watched it. So I'm really looking forward to her and I being able to watch that one together, and then there's like Good Story and stuff, and then she may watch The Rings of Power with me, the new series on Amazon, which should be really cool. Looking forward to that. That was our day. Hopefully we'll hear something about the house first thing in the morning. We'll have more news on our adventures in real estate for all of you tomorrow, and please remember to like and subscribe, leave your comments below, ask your questions, share on social media, let people know about the show. We are doing fantastic. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can go down and buy me a coffee. That link goes directly to me. And it's worth noting, just because I'm really excited about this. Wow, it's loud all of a sudden. I can't figure out. It's that guy with the speaker, that motorcycle. And today I checked the rankings, and this stuff fluctuates all the time. So I understand this is very momentary, but when I started really watching less than 6 months ago, I was so far behind. I was the 4th largest from Nicaragua English language channel on YouTube, and looking at the stats today, thanks to you guys, right? This is like, none of this is me. This is all you guys making this happen. Not only for the week, for like the first time was I've been in first place for the week from time to time, but it's always like, I'm 5% ahead of the next biggest channel or whatever. And today I was at triple the views of the next biggest channel. This is not going to last for long. It's going to go right back any day. But triple the views of the next biggest channel. And for the week, I was significantly ahead for the month, the rolling 30-day. And now, for the first time that I've ever seen it, I am the #1 show for the rolling 60-day stats on the shows. And for the week, as far as I can tell, I am getting as many views as all other English language shows in Nicaragua combined, which is crazy. At least all the ones that you can find easily. That's absolutely nuts. Thank you so much for all of the support you guys have put in. Just being subscribers and watching the show and sharing, and that you're making it seriously a big difference. Thank you so much. This is a really cool accomplishment. We're still a tiny channel, right? Like, we're a very small community, but I appreciate every one of you, and I've spoken to so many of you, which is really cool. Like, it's a very personal connection with a lot of you, and those who haven't spoken to me, stop by and actually buy me a coffee in real life, or get down there and leave your comments, and we'll actually have a conversation, because I really do try to get back to like everybody. And we're going to go do the throwback in just a minute. But that was it for today. It is a wild week. We're going to have more interesting drama from Nicaragua for you guys tomorrow, and that's where I will see you. I will see you all tomorrow. All right, it is the throwback to 2019 for November 1st, 2019. 3 years ago today, we had a pretty eventful day. It was the final day of moving Rachel out of her apartment. This was the drop dead date. There was no way we couldn't get her out today. She wasn't even supposed to be there. It's November 1st. She was supposed to be gone by midnight. We didn't make it. She just couldn't handle it. So somehow we managed to keep working on it. Today, we got her fully out. She has moved out. The moment she was moved out, we had to pack her. She and I are sharing luggage. So my stuff is packed. We packed her stuff. We are ready to go. We had to head to the airport early in the afternoon. Unfortunately, when we went to head to the airport, we found out that our flight was being delayed. Our original flight was supposed to be around 6 o'clock. And of course, it's international, so we need to get there a bit early. And they were delaying it until midnight. That's a bit of a problem, because we have a flight coming out of Fort Lauderdale at like 9 o'clock. Clearly, we are missing that, so we don't know what's going on. Alan and Teeny arrived from Salt Lake City and got there. They were at the airport, so they were able to go talk directly and find out what was going on. And by the time it was all said and done, we were not making a flight out today our flight was pushed off until tomorrow. So we ended up running to the airport, picking them up, and going out to the Drunken Donkey in the Colony to hang out for the evening since we were missing our trip to Nicaragua. But it was cool that we got to hang out because we had never met Teeny before. Alan had never met Rachel before. Alan and I had worked in Colorado together before, but we hadn't gotten a lot of time together. I mean, we got about a week hanging out, but we had spent years only knowing each other over the phone before that not so distant trip to Colorado. I think it was earlier in 2019. I don't actually know when it was. But this was a chance for all of us to hang out and get to know each other. So it actually worked out pretty well that we got to go to the Colony and hang out in a place that we knew, have drinks and dinner, and all get acquainted. And they got to meet Paul and Dominica. There's this no one had ever met in person except for Alan and I previous to this. Well, obviously Rachel and I. And so that was our evening, but that was supposed to be our flight. We were supposed to be in Nicaragua tonight, and it's now been delayed. So that's pretty eventful. And if all goes well, we're going to be there tomorrow. But this cuts our trip one day shorter, which is really sad because it wasn't a super long trip anyway. And I was really looking forward to spending time there. It's really disappointing because I was really wanting to be there today. But overall, it's still going to be just fine. And we now have Rachel moved right down the street, which is really awesome. So she lives just a 5-minute walk. It's one of the closest that any of my friends have ever lived. I think it's actually the closest I've ever had a friend live to us as a neighbor. That's crazy. Other than like when we lived in New Jersey, we made friends with our neighbors who lived in the same building. So, you know, Ryan and Kevin and people like that. But we lived in the same building and became friends because we met there, not the other way around. This is the first time that someone I knew moved right down the street in that way. So that's going to be pretty cool. We're really looking forward to living right next door to each other. So it was also the first time I did 4 updates for the video. Back in the day, we didn't have YouTube Shorts. That is why YouTube Shorts exists now. It'd be perfect for doing those kinds of updates where it's like, oh, we missed our flight. Here's what's going on. So we can keep everyone up to date. Back then, I didn't have that. So it was 4 completely separate updates for the day. And yeah, it's... makes for awkward viewing now many years later, but at the time it made total sense because family was watching the YouTube channel to see if we made our flight, when we arrived, and all that kind of stuff. That was our day all those years ago. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for hanging out until now. Comments, questions below. Make sure you go watch the actual throwback episode. That really does help out the channel. Give it a like on that as well. If you'd like to buy me a coffee to help support the channel, you can do that with the link down below. That really does come straight to me. And as always, share on social media with your friends, family, whoever you think might be interested in this vlog. It really helps a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks. I will see all of you tomorrow.